something that
Sorry, I
will,
just wanted to record it for prosperity.
okay. So something that will kind of keep us on track. Huh? Is this some slides to keep us on track.
So I see
So
this, I see this slide deck. Sales is not a dirty word.
yeah. So how to win more sales without acting like a douchebag. So I would like to know if anyone here has been told that they're too quiet, too much, not enough, that you needed to change what felt natural to you if you wanted to succeed, whether that was like in the way you approached marriage, parenting, your job, your industry, your career. Absolutely, quite often. Yeah, definitely, Ethan.
And just to let everybody know, Alicia, I will be monitoring the chat throughout. So, Alicia, just out of curiosity, how would you like to handle interaction or questions? Do you want to wait till the end? Should people put it in chat? What do you prefer?
So the questions I'll probably be able to address better at the end.
Okay.
Yeah. But I do like to know if what I'm saying is like resonating with people throughout so that I know that like it's clicking basically. So like most of us have tried to fit into whatever mainstream says you're supposed to be like or do, but it just doesn't get you the same results. And that's the experience of a black sheep, right? So they're the rule breakers, the challengers of the things that are normal. And if you might be wondering, like, am I a black sheep? I don't freaking know. Well, if you left corporate because the idea of security and safety wasn't enough to dealing with like the dysfunction and incompetence, then you would be a black sheep. So if you've ever, just wanted to do anything, maybe like you don't parent the same way, or you didn't want a big wedding, like all these things that they say you're supposed to want, that is a black sheep. And so cookie cutter things don't work for you. And why would sales be any different? You need something that feels aligned for a black sheep. And luckily, a black sheep is very powerful in sales because they are a pattern interrupt. So I'll share with you how to leverage the fact that you are different. And Thiago, I love that you love being a black sheep because there's this negative association with the term that I'm really trying to reclaim and turn into a positive because all of us are trying to find ways to stand out, and black sheep are literally just born that way. So it's about embracing it. And it's not an angry black sheep. It's just like, hey, there's got to be a better way to do this. And guess what? You're right. There is, no matter what that is that you're thinking there has to be a better way, right? Okay, so the common problem up to this point, like if you've taken sales trainings and you're still not quote unquote good at sales or whatever, you might be like, well, maybe I'm just, bad at sales. Like I implemented the stuff that the experts that make all the money said to do, and I'm still not making sales. So it's just because I'm bad at it, right? Who here has ever taken sales training? Okay. Did they tell you to do something that felt weird? And you were like, this feels weird. And they were like, do it anyway. They were like, just do it 100 times and then it won't feel weird anymore. Or like, sales is supposed to be uncomfortable. So you're doing it right, which is like a crazy idea. Um, so that's the problem a lot of times, that it's one size fits all. So it's not that the way mainstream sales people approach sales doesn't work. It works for that person, for that personality, for that industry, for that audience, and you're a different person than that person. So the second problem up to this point is, has anybody had an experience with a really douchey salesperson? It would be so cool if one day I asked that question, someone was like, never. Like, but that's never happened. Most people have had an experience with somebody like that. Yeah, right, Jeff? So most people are so concerned with potentially acting like that that they go 180 in the opposite direction and undersell themselves. And they have no idea how to navigate a conversation without feeling like pushy, you know? So in the end, like because the mainstream sales is basically like disregard your intuition, do things that feel weird. If it's uncomfortable, keep doing it or whatever. It starts to, and that's the experience you have with salespeople. It starts to feel like the only way to do sales is I'm going to beat you with my bat and take you to my cave, whether you like it or not. But here's the thing. Oh, black sheep don't have sales conversations. Okay. They have fitting conversations. So in mainstream sales, the only goal is to get a yes. And if you didn't get a yes, you failed. And for a black sheep, it's about the only goal is understanding if the other person is a fit for your solution and you are leaving space for them to not be a fit because that's okay if they're not a fit, right? It's just about what are your goals? What are your challenges? What's your timeline for that goal? And what's your expectation of me? And if it all lines up, then it's really easy to say, okay, let's do this. That's what I do. You want that result in 90 days and this is what you expect of me in order to get that result? Like, yeah, let's do it. And all the communication that goes out before the sales call should reflect that. Um, so a little bit about you. You're an expert at what you do and your approach is a little different from mainstream. And you create a very high value result, but sometimes you don't have the words to communicate the value of it. You probably only you have like high touch, high end conversation clients. So you would be like really happy with 25 clients a year, right? And if that is you, then the numbers game will actually hurt your business. You're not looking for volume. And if you treat people like numbers, that's going to reflect negatively on you and your reputation, and it's not going to make sales. So it's about quality. It's about filtering people out. It's about knowing who's not a fit and actively communicating that. Okay. So what we're going to cover today is focusing on the fit, what you're really selling, and shifting the mindset before the call so people are more likely to say yes. Because I think that's what we have time for. So first, an exercise. What does a good salesperson look like? Okay. So have you ever had a good sales experience? Anybody? Have you been like that salesperson was badass? Okay. Cool. What made you say that?
I
They
think,
listen.
yeah, Jeff said they listened.
Yeah.
Oh, they created a relationship, right? Like it was amazing. So
Cool. They connected. They just seem to actually care about you.
yeah, they didn't try to sell me. It's like at the end, I was just interested in buying just because of who they were.
Cool. Yeah.
Great, great questioning strategies.
Oh, okay. Cool. Yeah. Asking good questions. Authenticity. Totally. Like you're not trying to sell me. There's this saying that is just so true that nobody likes to be sold, but everybody likes to buy. Like convincing doesn't convince anyone. You know what I mean? So you're right. Studies show that 95% of clients feel that the typical salesperson talks too much, and 74% of customers are more likely to make a purchase if a salesperson listens to them. All we want is to be heard. All we want is to be seen and heard as a buyer. That's it. That means that you don't need to be this dude. So the problem a lot of times is that people have this idea of what a good salesperson acts like. And they pretend to be that person. So they pretend to be really smiley and high energy. And they're like, oh, but I'm not good at small talk. Like I'm going to be bad at sales and stuff like that. When it's like, it's ironic because nobody wants that guy because they think that guy is selling them something. And so they trust that guy less. All anybody wants is someone who's genuinely curious, empathetic, and passionate about what they do. They just want to feel seen and heard, right? You will sell more being a pattern interrupt. You will establish more trust. Like I have been on corporate teams of like 50 to 100 people, and the quiet ones were consistently top performers because it didn't feel like they were selling somebody. They didn't feel like a salesperson. They were asking good questions and they were quiet when the person was talking. And they weren't just listening to talk, right? So the black sheep sales method is when it's a fit, it's a fact, and there's no selling involved. So mainstream sellers are here to sell anyone as long as they have a working credit card, right? That's the only criteria for someone being a fit is do you have money and are you breathing? And that kind of works if you are not tied to the fulfillment of it at all. Like, okay, I sold this and I'm never going to see you again. But if you're going to continue having a client relationship with someone, that is a really bad way to have a relationship. Like that. Has anybody here ever had a nightmare client? Yeah. Some money is not better than no money, y'all. Like it drains you and it keeps you from making more money with people who are a good fit and who pay you well. And if you're just trying to get anybody to say yes, that is a recipe for nightmare clients. If you're somebody who has longer term, high touch client relationships, you don't want just anybody. So, black sheep are here to tell someone when they're not a fit because what you do doesn't work for everyone. And you want to tell somebody who it doesn't work for explicitly, right? There's no pressure or mind voodoo. It's very transparent. And that transparency disarms buyers because it's just the last thing they expect from someone selling something. And the less you seem like a typical salesperson, the more they will trust you and the more they'll let their guard down so they can actually hear you, right? So when you think about who's a fit and when you think about who's not a fit, you want to think about the patterns in the people who were happy working with you and that you liked working with. Did they have a certain amount? This is beyond industry and demographic and niche and all that, right? Like, did they have like an assistant in place who could get you the materials you needed to do the work that you do? Did they have a certain experience with other service providers that do what you do so they could understand the context of what you do? Did they have an organic message dialed in so that it made sense to put paid ads behind it and then they would be successful? Were they like not prim and proper because you're not prim and proper? And so y'all vibed really well. Like those kinds of things are really important. And then alternatively, think about the patterns in the people who were not happy with the results in working with you. What made them unhappy? Was it that they needed a result in a timeline that was too short? Was it that they expected you to answer them instantly? Is it that they expected you to do everything for them and they didn't do anything themselves? Like think about those kinds of things. And then you want to communicate that to somebody and say, like, yeah, the only time that this doesn't work is when you don't implement what I tell you, or I don't have somebody who can act as my gopher in the office to make sure I get what I need, or you don't give me your edits or approval within 3 days of me submitting the materials, or whatever. You're going to lay that out there, right? Because you want the expectation to be set and you want to ask, like, is there any reason this wouldn't be a fit? You know? So this type of transparency should happen long before the call happens. And we'll talk some about that. So it's nice because when you're focusing on fit, you just never get lost in the conversation. So sometimes people explain like, well, they said this thing and it just took me off on a detour and I was lost and I didn't know how to get back to the conversation and the point of what we were doing. Has anyone had this experience? They're like a curveball, like their prospect threw them curveballs. So it's really easy and it applies to objections too, which, I definitely recommend proactively prompting objections instead of coming from it from the defensive side. But like if you are in a place where somebody has an objection at the end of the conversation, you just want to get curious and understand, is it valid? Like, does this make you not a fit, right? Let's say somebody's like, I don't know, it seems pretty time consuming. Okay, how much time do you have? How much time do you need that person to have to get them the result that they want? And communicate that to them and get their buy-in on that. And if they don't have that time, that's okay. Maybe you're looking for something more done for you instead of done with you. Like, let me get you to that person. You know what I mean? Okay. So the first thing, and this is a big one, what are you really selling? So most people talk about their offer in the form of like deliverables. They're like, okay, so you're going to get this many posts on this many social platforms, and you'll get a monthly report, and you'll get this many creatives. And like, nobody wants that, right? They want the result of that. So it's not really your product or service, it's the result of your product or service. So you don't sell graphic design, you sell branding that attracts clients who happily pay more. Like you don't sell operations, you sell someone doing their job right from day one. Ethan doesn't sell like culture consultation, right? Ethan sells employee retention for years, right? Um, what you're supposed The result is not clear until you fully understand the client's challenges. How do you bridge this gap? Well, I can workshop. So I do this in these, and let's talk about it, Jeff, so you guys can see what this kind of sounds like. So what kind of coaching do you do, Jeff? What is it? Wait.
I do business coaching, and I coach specifically engineers who are pretty much introverts, and they're good at fixing machines and problems in the real world, but when it comes to people, they're really befuddled. And I think that it's hard to get them to fully communicate the challenge accurately because to them they can see the symptoms, but the problem is hard for them to unravel. And so for me to then promise them a result is hard because again, you're trying to be honest, you're trying to stick with your integrity, and then you think, well, can I really fix their stuff? Right. Or can
Yeah,
I help them fix their stuff?
that's coming from such a place of integrity. I really love it. So what are you coaching them on? Like how to speak up within a business or like how to run their own business?
How to run their own business. So typically engineers will put together tons of spreadsheets, they'll crunch numbers till the cows come home. And yet when it comes to communicating to their people, delegating out a lot of these tasks, it's really challenging for them. So
Hmm.
yeah.
Okay, so it's kind of like the people management thing that's getting them caught up a lot of the
But,
time.
but they don't think that that's what the challenge is. They think their people are just lazy or they're not they're not doing what they're supposed to do. And yet they have not told them what they want them to do. So there's this gap. And so I'm talking typically to the person who's not communicating, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And I don't know their full issue until I've had a deep conversation with them. So
Yeah, of course. You want to know, like, is it this person or is it their people? And you need to, like, get some information to understand which one it is. However, regardless, it sounds like the result is a business with people who know what to do and are doing it well, no matter what. Whether that's that they need to replace the people or they need to adjust their communication, the end result seems to be like a company with employees who do stuff, basically. Yeah.
right.
So that would be the end result. At the end of our work together, you have employees who do the things they need to do and they do them well. And the how of that happening is going to depend on the person, but you're going to get them to that result ultimately. So it sounds like they would be like, thank God, because I'm really annoyed with that not happening right now, which is what you want somebody to say. That's what they want, right? They want that
Right.
thing. How does
Yes.
it feel for you? Do you have doubts?
I think it's just a matter of me overcoming kind of my own ideas that, well, I need to explain to them how I'm going to help them before I give them a result.
So, yes, when you explain the how, you're not going to explain it in deliverables or your process necessarily. Like you want to back it up to more high level. So, for example, we're going to understand what the communication looks like with your employees now and what their current job responsibilities are, and understand if those are the right people for the job. So, we're going to make sure you have the right people in the right jobs. If not, we're going to move those people in a different area so everybody's like playing to their strengths, and we're going to create a mode of communication that is bulletproof for you to make sure that somebody is taking care of their stuff. And there's going to be like accountability metrics so that it's very clear and not like emotional whether somebody's doing their job or not. And like that's kind of, you know what I mean? Like you can kind of speak of the how in like a high level way that's more of like a story that somebody walks through and they can see how it could happen. How does that feel?
I, that feels good. I mean, I think my only challenge is because people are people, I always have this sense that, okay, so I'll coach them and I'll give them these great tools and I'll help them through these topics, but 5 years from now, will they have solved all of their problems? And the challenge is new problems will come up. And so it's always that finality of, oh yeah, life's gonna be great in the end, but I feel like I'm promising something that can never come true.
Oh, okay. So in those instances, instead of underselling yourself, which is what often happens instead, because you're like, but what if, there's all these like caveats, right? You just say the caveats. You're just like, and that will be true for your company as it is now and the employees that you have right now. Obviously, things evolve. Your business will evolve. You'll have new people in seats and you'll have a framework for how to manage those conversations. And there will be nuance to it. You'll be in a better position than you were before because you'll have a framework for how to manage, even if they're different people and different problems.
Right.
Aleasha,
I agree.
Aleasha, can I ask a question?
Of course.
As we extrapolate or pull out of Jeff's specific situation, but apply this concept of maybe everybody on this webinar is challenged with selling in terms of providing solutions to challenges that keep our clients up at night. Am I correct in understanding that you're suggesting we work backwards from instead of what our solutions or what our capabilities or even anything about us, and start with getting the potential client to verbalize what they would want ideally in an outcome, and then getting them to agreement with us on what we together can achieve? Is that what I'm hearing?
I mean, that is definitely would work. A lot sometimes the reason you hear hesitation in my voice, the person doesn't know actually the outcome that they want sometimes. So, like, there is a line, and we are limited in the time that we have here, so I can't like cover everything, but there is a way of asking questions that gets the other person clear on what they actually want. So, like in Jeff's situation where the engineer doesn't think that it's their problem, like there are questions he could ask that would show that person that maybe there is some area for improvement.
So in purpose of time today, but also being respectful to everybody's desired outcomes from learning from you,
Yeah,
would it be fair to say that they could potentially have a conversation with you to understand how to frame their own specific questions
of
to
course.
get that? Okay, and I'll provide for everybody all of Aleasha's contact details.
Yeah. So that's what I do. And your audience is going to be different. I love that, Jeff, you've got like so niche down. Like engineers who are introverts, which is most of them, but not all of them. Engineers who just want like black and white, like numbers, like, and how and they need to work with people. They need to manage people. They need to inspire them and they need to motivate them and they need to hold them accountable. That is so clear. And there's so many pain points that you can push on with that and so many ways you can show like the alternative there. Not that I'm a big pain point pusher. Jeff knows that because he's been following my content. But there are so many challenges, I would say. Like challenges are important to understand. It's not that you want to dig into the pain, like I'm not into that, but you definitely need the context of like what you're struggling with right now. So this kind of gets me to like the next piece, which is pre-call education. Does anybody here feel like they need to educate in their sales conversations? Yeah. Okay. So that's a really common issue. You can't educate and sell at the same time. It's just too much. Because the person has to understand and process what you're educating them on, and then they have to decide if something is right for them. And it's a lot in one conversation. So, sometimes people are like, oh, don't educate in a conversation because then the person will just leave and do it all on their own. But it's not really that, it's that they're overwhelmed. You're overwhelming them and they're like, oh, this is a lot to process. This has been really valuable. Thank you. Like those kinds of statements are like, I'm overwhelmed. And a confused mind says no or let me think about it. And then also, such a big part, you want to send that education or that context that they need to have ahead of time before you have a sales conversation. And you also want to let them know who's not a fit, right? So, for example, I have a client who shows insurance agents how to create inbound leads with social media for free. And people would come in like, I don't I don't understand how any am I doing this on my business page? Am I doing it on my personal page? Like, what am I saying? And they were having to just like give all this education in the conversation. It was so much heavy lifting for the client. And so we broke it out and had a little video that was like, hey, here's like the three biggest misconceptions about being an insurance agent. One, paid leads are not the easiest way, and social media is, but it's not that you're going to do it on your business profile. You're going to do it on your personal profile. And here's why. So if you have an issue with that, this is not a fit. Like, we're not trying to convince anybody to use their personal profile, and no, you're not going to be saying, come get a free quote. It's not about that. It's about making you a human who has interests and like somebody that people relate to. So if you're just looking for somebody to tell you this is how we do it and create a custom plan with you that's specific to your brand and what you're comfortable doing as a human, then we can't wait to talk to you. If you're like, I think social media is the devil, I want somebody to post for me, we're not a social media agency. We're not going to post it for you. So that's not a fit. So I would go ahead and cancel this call and save us all time. The shift in the conversations they had was incredible. So is this like bringing anything to mind of like what you wish people knew before your conversations and how different your conversation could be if they knew that? It's usually whatever you find yourself saying in every single conversation. Like it's something you're repeatedly saying. So like for Ethan, I'm guessing it's that people are your profit and like explaining how that no? What is it?
All the time.
Oh, it is that? Okay, yeah.
It is universally failure to understand that people are an organization's greatest competitive advantage.
So you want to send that ahead of time in some type of digestible format and let people know that if you're just looking for a way to make the cogs in your wheel more productive, like, oh, I just need to shift job responsibilities, or I need more consequences, or I need better PIP plans. This is not a fit. Just go ahead and cancel this call. That's not me. There's somebody else who will do that with you, and you should go find that person. If you're somebody who realizes that if they take care of their people are going to take care of them, and you want a guideline for how to do that without feeling like, what do they call it? A rug that you walk on? What is that saying?
A rug, a mat. Good
A walking mat?
analogy.
Whatever, a mat. Yeah. You don't want to be a doormat
A
without being,
doormat. Thank you,
without
Mitch.
yeah, without feeling like a doormat that gets taken advantage of, that there's mutual respect. Because, you kind of want to speak to those like objections that people have for this too in that pre-call education. So I'm sure some people are like, oh, what? So then the employees run the whole circus, the monkeys are running the circus, and like I don't get to say anything because I'm just like gonna bow to them because they have all the power and da, 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 da. And so you can like dispel that. Like, no, if you want a way to do this that feels good for you both and is mutual respect and feels like a win-win, like you're happy to do it, then I can't wait to talk to you, kind of a thing. And so you don't have to have all that in the beginning of your conversation. So I can do laser coaching on this, or we could just do Q&A. What would you guys prefer?
I'm sorry, what were the options?
The hot seat coaching, like what I did with Jeff. I could do that for the pre-call education, which I kind of just did it with you, Ethan, a little bit. Or we could just do regular questions.
I think, how does everybody feel about going right into, Aleasha, you're talking about going into the Q&A portion where people just present questions to you about their particular challenges? How does everybody feel about going right into, I think questions now would be an appropriate time, good use of our time.
Okay, I mean, just to say, the recap, it's fitting, not selling. Connect the dots for your customers. You might think that they understand why having a frame for managing employees to productivity would be good. You're like, duh, because then they'll have like a higher performing company. But you have to connect that dot for them. And you can't educate and sell in the same conversation. So Q&A.
So
So
I must have a limit. Oh, go ahead.
what questions do people have for Aleasha? Or
I may have
observation?
oh yeah. I may have a limiting belief that I always thought that selling was educating. And so that's what I have always planned. So marketing is actually attracting. It's like saying, okay, this is that you're sparking kind of this notion that, hey, I may need this person as a coach. And then selling was educating in that it was like, okay, so here's the process, here's how this works, here's how everything works, and here's how you get from point A to point B, which is the result. And if you want that, then buy my stuff.
Yeah.
So how, because pre-educating, it just feels like they're not going to read your information ahead of time. And
Well, you
right.
have to frame it as something that is beneficial for them that they want to read, and you have to present it as something that's beneficial for them that they want to hear. So, for example, like the three biggest misconceptions engineers have about running a business. They want to know what that is,
Okay.
you know? And then you can share with them, one of them is that employees know what the hell they're doing because you laid out job responsibilities in a job listing or something. I don't know. You want to, it would be specific. Obviously, I have limited information here, but you know what I mean? Like you send that out ahead of time as like a mindset shift. And the conversation, a sales conversation, truly, since you have a coaching background, it is a coaching conversation, like in a big way. You are guiding somebody to the solution that's in their best interests by understanding well, why haven't you done anything up to this point? You know what I mean? Like what do you believe is possible for you? And what is it that you want? And is that thing realistic? Is it realistic knowing that you have to do XYZ to get it? Are you cool with that? And like that kind of a, like really just because people will say what they want. So for example, maybe an engineer will be like, I just want to hire someone that manages all my employees for me. You'd be like, okay. Um, have you tried to do that? No, not yet. Okay. Does it make a difference that you would have to manage them? So you still have to manage. You're like kind of like coaching them through to a realization that they need to give themselves versus you giving them the realization. So when you say educating in a sales conversation, you're telling them what they need to know instead of them uncovering it themselves.
Yeah, I guess I've always thought of a sales conversation as being a mutually educational experience. So you're learning about them and they're learning about what you do. And there's kind of this mutual education. And then it kind of doubles as a qualification as well. So, or disqualification. So you learn about what they're doing and what challenges that they have, and how they want to deal with them. And you know that you're not the fit. And it's like, hey, look, this was good conversation, learned a lot, and we'll just go our own ways.
May I make a suggestion, if I might, in the interest of time and to get everybody's questions? If maybe Jeff, you and Aleasha could have a separate conversation and dive into a little bit more detail.
Sometimes it helps people to hear it. I don't know if this is helpful, if other people have these kind of ideas, but yes, I'm totally down for that too, Jeff.
For sure. And I believe Aleasha Jennifer had a question.
Oh, she did. Jennifer, what's your question?
Hi there. I guess so I sell interior plants. I guess so my issue is a little bit different. Definitely having a sales conversation where I'm educating people is important because my product is a luxury, it's not a necessity. So when I and it matters to me and it's important to me, right? And I want to have those conversations that are authentic. I get them what they're looking for. But I guess how do you overcome, price is always a big one, right? Money, money, money. but how do you overcome the pushback when they're like, you know what, I don't need this, or I don't like, is it beyond just educating them, or then it makes me feel like I should be pushy, right? And I don't want to be. Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
it does. And you're saying interior design, right?
Yes, specifically with live plants.
With plants. Okay, I
Yes.
thought I heard plants, and I was like, I've never heard of that. And then I didn't know if it was plans. Okay, so plants. So again, like there's only so much that's possible to cover in a short period of time. But in your sales conversations, you want to prompt the typical objections. So you want to talk through like, what is the value of enjoying your environment to you? Like, um, are you wanting what's more important to you, like a result or the price? Like kind of a thing. So you can sort of understand where someone is ahead of time. Because when you address that at the end of the conversation, think about like, so the typical overcoming objections is basically invalidating someone else's concern. They're like, I have this concern. And the salesperson's like, well, it doesn't matter. You should buy it anyway. And nobody's convinced by that, And you're coming from this like defensive position, like pushing a ball uphill, as opposed to like addressing it in the beginning when you both can transparently talk about it and it doesn't feel like one of you is trying to convince or sell the other one of something. So with interior design specifically, I really like to, I think the pre-call education that makes a huge difference would be like, hey, imagine yourself in this room and like whatever you're designing. Like let's say it's an office and show like a really stark office with fluorescent lighting and no plants. And you're like, do you feel like getting stuff done? Do you feel like being here for 8 hours? What would this do to your work? There is an emotional result from your environment that very much has an impact on what you create, right? Now look at this room. Would you want to be here for 8 hours? What would you do in this room? That is the power of your environment. If you're spending that much time in it, it needs to be something that fuels you and not takes away from you. Now, if you're somebody who just wants the cheapest thing or can't keep a plant alive, that's me. I can't keep a plant alive. Even a succulent, it's really sad. Then this is not a fit. If you're somebody who, and there's something different about how you do the thing with the plants, definitely. It's not just like plants. It's like probably plants based on what you need most in your job and what they add to the space. It's like not just aesthetic, I'm sure. But you'd want to communicate that and let them know that it's an investment and it's an investment that makes a difference in your overall life, like quality of life. And I think that COVID is such a great example of this. When COVID happened, everyone was like, oh my God, I need to get renovations because I'm going to be stuck in this house. Like, I need to like the place where I'm stuck. And you can reference stuff like that. And also, like, if somebody says this thing about price at the end, it's like, well, does it make a difference that when you've already talked to them about the difference it would make in their life, does it make a difference that this would make this day in, day out difference for you?
Well, Aleasha, just to kind of confirm, would it be helpful to do similar to what you suggested previously, that Jennifer has, for example, a pre-qualifier she sends out that says the top 5 positive impacts on performance and productivity if you redesign your workspace?
Yes, except that
Or,
one sounds like she's going to sell them. So you almost would rather want to say, because they're like, yeah, of course she's going to send me something about how great it's going to be. Like the 3 things you don't realize your environment is doing to your
okay,
productivity or
okay,
something,
thanks. That makes help. I also just wanted to point out, I believe Mitch has a question.
Okay, was that helpful, Jennifer?
Yes, that was great. Thank you so much.
Okay, good, good, good. Okay, Mitch. Hi.
Hey, hi, how are
Hi.
you?
Good. How
So
are you?
I'm okay. I'm relatively newer at the sales approach and having conversations.
Oh,
And so, one of the luxury is also a bad thing is reading, right? There are so many books out there on how to sell. And
okay.
I've tried to have conversations. So in my world, I provide human resources services.
Okay.
And Mark, I'm not sure, he's probably similar. Now, I can have a conversation with someone and their belief is they need a compensation tool
Mhm.
because they're losing people.
Right.
But in my world, it's really, I want to sit with them and have a problem-solving discussion because that may not be it. It could be other factors that are the biggest problem.
Mhm.
So I'm trying to approach it from let's do problem solving together. And then the part I go to next is say, okay, where's the interest level in solving this particular problem? Now that we've identified what it really is,
Yeah.
now,
Okay. So I would suggest instead of identifying what the problem is, so like similar to what Jeff was saying, like, oh, but I don't know if it's them or if it's the employees, right? You don't need to know that in the
Mhm.
sales conversation. That's something that you need to know in the client conversation once somebody's already a client. In the sales conversation, you need to know what they want to improve by what time and what would they need to see
Mhm.
to be like, this was a great
Okay.
investment. And is that realistic for you? And in your case, you need to ask, are you open to the solution being something other than compensation? Because I don't know, because we haven't dived into it yet, but a lot of times compensation is not the issue. And I want to make sure you're open to other solutions like maybe adjusting communication or,
Yeah.
how you're leading or whatever. And if you're not open to that, then it's not a fit. And I don't know yet because we need to dive in. And
Right.
that's what Jeff needs to do too. I don't know what the deal is yet because we need to dive in. However, this is what you get in
Okay.
the end. You get employees that stay.
Okay. That's fair. Great. Thank you.
Okay, I think we're at time, right?
We are, and I do want to honor, Aleasha, your time and everybody else's. But before we kind of wrap up, I'd be remiss if I didn't say thank you so much, Aleasha, for joining us and sharing your expertise as a true badass salesperson. So thank you for giving you us some of your experience and knowledge. Before we go, any last questions as we wrap up? So a few housekeeping. I have obviously recorded this. I'll put it on my YouTube channel. Just reach out to me. Let me know about the link. Other than that, Aleasha, if people wanted to follow up with you directly, they heard what you had to say.
LinkedIn.
How did they get in touch with you? What's the
It's
best way to
scan.
get in touch with you?
You can scan this right here. So it's
Oh,
been an honor. Time is precious. So I really, it means a lot that you spent it with me. I hope that you feel like you got something that, feels like it can move you forward a little bit. Obviously the time is limited, so I just at least one nugget would make me really happy if you were able to like feel some clarity. And I just want you to know that like you're talented and have so much good to bring to this world. People need you. Please don't let feeling weird about sales stop you from helping good people because there's somebody they're going to spend money with, and there's a lot of people who don't deliver and are good at selling. So save people from that.
I love that advice. So thank you, everybody. You now know how to reach out to Aleasha directly and be on the lookout for our next June Top of Mind speaker series. Thank you so much, Aleasha.
Thank you, Ethan. All right. Have a wonderful day. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.